Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This industrial East Coast city is famous for steel production and shipbuilding. But Pittsburgh is also surrounded by rich coal reserves. And here, just 50 kilometers from the city, are the Bailey and Enlow Fork mines. This is the largest underground mining complex in North America. And every year it produces more than 20 million tons. There are millions of dollars invested in this vast complex, and with more than 200 men working underground at any one time, keeping it running is a major logistical challenge. So every day, safety manager Chuck Shanak meets with his team to plan the day's operations.
The map you're looking at here is a 10-year timing map. It maps out the mining for the next 10 years for the coal mine. So we plan long-term, but we also do a lot of short-term planning. Because one thing about mining that makes it exciting, it changes very, very quick. The conditions change, the equipment changes. Not only do you have to have a plan, but you got to be willing to adapt that plan to whatever kind of comes about.
At 4 in the afternoon, the day shift clocks off after 8 hours hard graft, while the next shift makes its way into one of the lift cages to begin the 200-meter descent into the mine. Mining is one of the toughest jobs imaginable, and there's an unspoken bond between these men who spend every working day deep underground. But even once they've arrived at the bottom of the shaft, they still face a long journey to the coalface. After almost 20 years of continuous mining, a vast network of underground tunnels now extends for an extraordinary 90 square kilometers, and the miners face an 8-kilometer journey to get to the section currently being worked. It's a cramped and uncomfortable ride aboard one of the mine's small trains, as the carriages rattle their way through the maze of dark tunnels, following a network of rails that are now so busy they even require lights to control the traffic. Half an hour later, they finally arrive at the seam, and the first step in getting the coal out can begin. First up is a monster machine known as a continuous miner. Armed with a 5-meter cutting drum, this ferocious beast chomps away at the seam, carving out a series of access tunnels. As it bores its way forward, it feeds the coal behind it to the crab-like loader and shuttle car. These transfer it to a conveyor belt for transport to the surface. But mining coal is a dangerous business, as Chuck Shanak is only too aware.
Probably the biggest danger that we have is the roof and the ribs, the area around us. It's not like being outside in an office or being in your home. The roof and ribs are very unstable. You have to pay attention to them constantly to make sure there's no loose material that could fall and hit you.
So as the continuous miner slowly tunnels forward, every few meters the guys must stop to shore up the roof with pneumatic supports. The digging also produces highly explosive coal dust, which coats the surface of the newly exposed rock. One spark could cause a massive explosion, so it must be constantly sealed in by spraying the exposed surfaces with rock dust. But as the miners tunnel even further, it becomes increasingly difficult to supply them with air and prevent the buildup of highly explosive methane gas.
If we didn't bleed the methane, basically in our old mined-out areas, this would all build up with methane gas in a dangerous level, and there could be a possibility of an explosion in the mine. But with the bleeder fans, we have a lot of ventilation underground that controls the methane. If we didn't do that, it'd be a very dangerous situation.
Instead of letting the methane go to waste, it's collected in these plants above ground. The hope is to eventually harness the gas to generate more power to feed back to the mine itself. Back below ground, the continuous miner produces up to 5 tons of coal every minute, more than a miner in the 1920s produced in a whole day. But its job is simply to prepare the way for the real monster, the long wall shearer. Armed with a set of teeth to put a Tyrannosaurus to shame, its cutting edge is over 300 meters long and it can smash an amazing 50 tons of coal out of the seam every minute. Think about it. That's almost 1 ton of coal every second, enough to meet all the energy needs of an average household for almost 3 months. But there are almost 3 million tons of coal in this 4-metre-high seam. So despite its ferocious appetite, it will still take 6 months shuttling back and forth before it's finished digging it all out. It uses massive hydraulic shields to prevent the ceiling from collapsing. Then each time it lumbers forward, the shields move with it, allowing the roof to collapse harmlessly behind it. Meanwhile, the mix of coal and rock speeds away on a conveyor to the surface. It's here that the coal finally breaks the surface for the first time in 250 million years. This is the Bailey Preparation Plant, and every day 100,000 tons of material arrive here by conveyor belt, ready for processing. In charge of the plant is facility manager Brian Kelly.
This is the largest preparation plant in the world. We shipped last year approximately 20.8 million tons. It's a very efficient run place, and we have a talented workforce that strives to be the best.
Before the coal is fit for shipping, they first need to remove rock, soil and contaminants, which account for up to 30% of the raw feed. So the material is fed via conveyor into the processing plant. To ensure it's all properly processed, it's first graded according to size. Next, to separate the coal from the waste rock, it's fed into this giant flotation tank. Because the rock is heavier than the coal, it sinks to the bottom where it can be removed, while the coal floats to the surface. The trouble is, it's now soaking wet. So, just like your home laundry, they load it into a spin dryer. This industrial dryer spins the coal at high speed until excess water is removed. This water is then fed into vast tanks where the contaminants are removed before being disposed of as waste slurry. Meanwhile, the different-sized pieces of coal are recombined, crushed into a uniform mix and fed into a giant hopper. Incredibly, just 15 minutes after entering the plant, it's ready for transport by rail. But delivering 80,000 tons of coal every day requires some seriously heavy-duty trains. Each of these monsters is up to 2 kilometers long and consists of 130 massive wagons. As they park beneath the hopper, a controller opens a chute to allow 6 tons of coal to fill each of the wagons. Once full, every train is able to transport over 10,000 tons of coal to power stations across North America. Coal mining has long been one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, with miners risking underground tunnel collapse, explosion and hazardous gases to excavate this precious resource. And whilst mining is safer than ever before, it remains perilous, and only the miners who've worked at the cutting edge really understand what it takes.
People do get to form their own impression on coal mining and coal miners in general, and it's not like what most people think it is. We're a good bunch of guys, and it's a very good, safe place to work. We're proud of what we did.
Thanks to some extraordinary coal-crunching machines and the guys who labour 24/7 to keep them working, this essential resource keeps flowing to the world's power stations, and there's enough electricity to power the wheels of the modern world.